Hey everyone, it's Vangelus. I wanted to share some thoughts on this here new movie that we got, Revenge of the Fallen. I haven't really done many movie reviews because I'm not really sure how to do them, so for this one I decided to just write down some thoughts and discuss them on the camera. This also means that my continuing burnout on movie discussion can be solved by just directing people to this video if they want to know my thoughts, I guess. A little bit of an intro, by the way, for those of you who might be watching this who aren't big on the Transformers thing. Been into Transformers for just around 24 years or so, just a bit over that now. Heavily active in the online fandom for around 10 years. I've watched all the North American series. I've watched or at least read synopses for the Japanese series. I still have to truck through some of those new fan subs. I'm pretty aware of a lot of the Transformers history now. They've been a player in North American toy scenes for quite a while, actually, without stop since the mid-90s, I believe. And worldwide, Transformers has never actually stopped having a toy line, which is interesting. Learned that in 2004. And it also has a lot more fiction and media than the live-action films and the 80s animation pieces. So I'm coming at it from a perspective where I don't see the movie as the be-all and end-all replacement of the 80s cartoons. There's lots more in between. I won't go into that, though. What I'm really hoping is that people who see this movie, regardless of their opinion, especially those who get very emotional about this movie and get all their either their love or their hate on, will feel, inspired to focus this energies on something a little bit more productive. Like, arguments are great, but after a while, they get kind of circular. So, if you find yourself getting into that, try focusing those energies on something like discover some of the cool other Transformers franchises and medias out there. Like, check out Animated or Beast Wars or even Beast Machines. Some of the comic series. Lots of great fiction out there. In fact, even the movie, the prequel comics, were pretty palpable action comics. I was pretty impressed by those. The first thing I want to cover is, before I saw the movie, I did catch some opinions online, and there are several critiques that I see brought up more than a lot of other ones by a lot of people. This, of course, is not a blanket 100% statement. There's always ways to prove me wrong. But there are a couple critiques that I think were completely overblown. I'll cover three at once right now. Robot balls, robot farts, robots humping. Those things took up, if I'm being generous, maybe 60 seconds of cumulative time throughout the entire 2.5-hour experience. So, if that tiny fraction of a time out of a large movie can ruin the entire movie for you, then I sympathize and I apologize, I guess, and I feel sorry for you. But honestly, they were so minor, I was surprised to see them brought up as much as I have seen them get brought up. Literally, the robot balls, people had me thinking it was going to be like a 10-minute slow-motion close-up on Devastator's crotch, and it was like, 5 seconds and a one-liner? I don't know, maybe I'm just not as easily affected by that stuff. I don't know. Honestly, a lot of that stuff is being blown out of proportion, in my opinion. Nothing wrong with disliking it, just it really is a small part of the movie. The other big one right now, of course, is the racism debate on Skids and Mudflap, and I'm going to say right now, I honestly don't see it. I think it's, again, overblown hyperbole. I think it's, in fact, a bandwagon, along with those other ones I mentioned before. And again, I don't mean that you suck and are on a bandwagon for thinking that. It's just that I feel that since they're so quippable and they're so easy and they're so shock value to bring up, that it's a lot more fun for people who want to get their hate on to bring up these things than some of the far more palpable problems with the movie that I'm going to be going into. Namely, about Skids and Mudflap, I don't see gangsta speak as a race trait. I've in fact known far more Caucasian and semi-Caucasian people who speak like that than I have known any ethnicity that could be considered a minority. The text that people are coming down on them for not being able to read, i.e., we don't do much reading. By the way, spoilers if somehow you hadn't guessed already. That text is only readable by one character in the entire movie, and the fact that no one can read it is a plot point, so I thought that was some misguided rage there. The only thing that I've really been able to kind of see eye to eye on is that they might have big ears. But again, I have to stretch to say that, and all I see are robot antennae. I mean, I watch a lot of robot cartoons. I've been looking at the Skids and Mudflap designs, along with several other movie designs, through leaks for the last, year, so maybe that's just dulled it all to me. And also, up until I saw the movie, I thought they were going to be hillbillies, which is why I thought the idea of MC Paddington, which was put together by pretty much a long Skype conversation really late at night between myself and King Lafo and Kal-El Prime and Cobra Commander TFW. That's why I thought it was so funny, because I thought they were going to be hillbillies. I thought they were going to be all like, duh, moonshine, hick time. And I actually find wannabe gangsters hilarious. So, yeah, the racism thing, again, another thing that I feel has been, by more than just online critics, blown out of the water in proportion-wise, and is mired in hyperbole and misused context. That said, you know, if you were offended by it, I'm not going to yell at you. I just personally think that that whole argument is a waste of time. I do have a fairly balanced list of pros and cons to talk about, so I'm going to try to go through them in some kind of feasible order. Pro. Delicious robot action. There was lots of robot action, and I rather enjoyed it. Apparently I am part of a special cadre in that I could tell what was going on, and I believe that is, again, because I've spent so much time looking at robot designs that their physicalities are just something I'm aware of at this point, so I didn't have much trouble telling what was happening. In fact, it's worth noting that, you know, this movie franchise is now several years old, continuity-wise, since '07 and perhaps late '06. We've been getting fiction for this universe, and there's been fiction between the two movies as well. So I'm just used to how they look now. I guess that is a small advantage I might have over an average moviegoer. So I really liked all the robot action. I liked that there was lots of combating. It was pretty exciting to watch. Also, I love John Turturro, another pro. Pro number 2. Love John Turturro. Thong aside, I thought the thong thing sucked, but otherwise I really enjoyed him. One man! I got a kick out of that. John Turturro is really... I enjoy him in whatever I see him in usually, so this really was a bonus. And as you might have guessed from some earlier comments, I got to apologize to the internet, but I thought Wheelie and the twins were awesome. I found them entertaining, I found them cartoony. I felt that, you see, there's a line, right? There's a big line here. Characters like Jar Jar Binks jump over that line and run off over the edge of the waterfall and, you know, way over here. Mudflap and Wheelie, I felt, stood next to the line most of the time. This line's a hazy line. It changes for everyone. But I felt that Wheelie and Mudflap and Skids really didn't go overboard to a degree that I would find irritating. It really helped that they didn't constantly laugh at themselves or have another character go like, "Oh, Wheelie," or "Oh, Mudflap and Skids, you kooky pair." You know, it was downplayed despite being pretty over-the-top silliness, and that worked for me. That's the kind of thing I like. So, I enjoyed them. Thought that the voicing on them was great, especially on Wheelie. Big props. Let's pick out a con now. Bumblebee. As I'm talking about these wonderful cartoony characters, Bumblebee was a codependent psychopath. Big con there. Now, at the beginning of the movie, it was kind of cute, you know, but over the course of the film, I didn't really see myself liking Bumblebee much. It felt like he hadn't grown since the first movie. It felt like he'd actually recessed into a complete codependent mental case. The biggest point being around the end when he's supposed to take Sam's parents far away from the fight, and he drives them straight to Sam's semi-eviscerated, incinerated corpse. Yeah, Bumblebee had a good fight scene here and there, but really I was surprised at how annoyed I got by him, especially considering how endearing he became over the first movie. I was hoping they'd do more with him. Also, and this enters into a bigger thing, it was a shame that they took away the talking. I mean, granted, the voice they gave him was kind of odd, but if you read the prequel fiction, you know why his voice doesn't work anymore. But in the context of the film itself, all they imply is that he's playing it up, which, again, codependent psychopath. In order for him to have to stay with Sam all the time, I started imagining that he just, like, ripped his own throat out, so he'd go like, "No, Sam, I don't want to leave your son," rip the thing out, and there you go. Yeah, Bumblebee, not so much. But on cartoony characters, again, another pro I'll just bring up now. Jetfire, Wheelie, and the twins felt like cartoon characters in every good way. I was really happy to see them portrayed as they were. I mean, granted, Jetfire could have been more badass, but really, I enjoyed them. And they felt like characters out of Animated, which is something I liked. It felt like I was seeing a Transformers movie with cartoon characters in it again. And that's what I felt was missing from the first movie. What's another con we can go into here? Here's a double-ended one, pro and con. First part of the movie, I really enjoyed the pacing. Just like the first movie, the opening scene was electrifying. We move around a lot, you know, get some exposition, plot, college, everything's going fine. Then we go to Egypt, and the plot goes into... It doesn't stop, that's too simple. The plot goes into spasms. and it kind of goes, oh, now I'm gonna go no, medium, gonna go medium, now fast, medium, slow scene. Okay, so there must be a climax. No, medium scene, okay, now another slow scene. So we're building for the climax twice. And, oh, never fast! It's going all over the place. All the Egypt stuff felt like it was just having a spasm. And it did go on for too long as well. The pacing just went crazy there, which was a disappointment, because I felt the pacing was getting off to a pretty good start at the beginning of the movie. I'm gonna go through a lot of the pros first, I think, also just because they're more one-off, and I can kind of relate some of them to the cons. Unvocoded soundwave voice. Went in thinking, oh, that sucks. Should be all, you know, robot-y and stuff, but really, I found that Soundwave's unvocoded voice, the Dr. Claw-ish voice, actually worked really well, given the menacing nature of movie Soundwave, and it worked for me. It was a lot better than I expected, so I was pleasantly surprised there. Another character who I'm a little bit topsy-turvy on here is Alice the Pretender. I thought she was used correctly, looked very cool. You know, that's what a pretender would be like in a kind of setting that we're in this film franchise, but at the same time, her entire set of scenes and her whole role was more or less something that could have been cut out, and I don't think the movie would have suffered for it. Enters into a bigger problem that I'm going to go into later on, of trying to fit too much in at the same time. That said, Overkill, as some have called him, the little nanomachine spherical raptor thing, was freaking cool. I loved it. I loved the idea that the dude could turn like almost two-dimensional by turning sideways. The whole nanotechnology thing, it was a neat little step. I found his sequence actually pretty neat. I was sad to see that he more or less disappeared after that. Another tiny robot I loved was the Doctor, Herr Doktor. Really entertaining. I love that they went with the crazy Nazi scientist voice on him. Although, again, with the racism thing, I gotta say, funny how we're picking on the twins when we have a little spider-like Nazi scientist with multiple pairs of monocles all over his eyes. But then again, apparently German racism is acceptable, which is something I've come to learn over the last couple years of my life. Megatron and Starscream, going off that cartoony thing again. They were a very believable villain pairing this time. I loved the fact that they talked to each other. It really helped. I loved that Megatron had lines this time. Megatron felt like a way more believable badass villain this time, most of the time he was on screen. I really adored the dialogue when he put, you know, his claw thing and held Sam down to have him get dissected, and he's all like, "I'm going to kill you." And I really enjoyed that. It felt, again, like I was watching a fun cartoon show. It was great. Starscream was pretty cool too, although I wish he did more. And Megatron, as I said, most of the time was cool. Then there were the times where he interacted with the Fallen. In all the fiction outside of this actual film that are, you know, in the movie universe, the comic books, the novels, the video games, Megatron is nowhere near as sycophantic as he was in this film, and that was a real deal breaker for me on his relationship with the Fallen. Not to mention the fact that most of the actual relationship between the two of them, which was detailed heavily in the prequel comic books, went almost entirely unmentioned in this movie. It was, however, mentioned. I actually double-checked with a friend of mine who I thought was going to hate the movie, who's not in the fandom at all, and he told me that it was pretty clear to him, if a little vague, how they were related and who the Fallen was. But I did feel the movie pulled a little bit of a General Grievous in that you had to have read or seen something outside of the movie to fully understand something in the movie. And I like it when fiction outside of a film can supplement a film, but I don't like it when a film relies on that fiction. So that was a big straw-chewing, clench-my-fist thing. But yeah, I generally like Megatron, except when he was talking to the Fallen. And having just played through the video game, I'm even more not into how he interacted with the Fallen, because in the game he even has a better rapport with him. And that can kind of go into... Well, I will say before I go into this, that I really enjoy the Devastator combination scene. Holy crap, that was cool, wasn't it? It was great. I loved it. I saw it at BotCon. I loved seeing it again. I loved that high-pitched crescendoing whine in the background. It's like, this is gonna be awesome! And then they cut to a completely different sequence. And that takes me into one of my biggest problems with the movie, which was that Devastator and the Fallen were absolutely wasted. Devastator should have been a climactic experience, and all he really did was walk around a bit and knock the top of a pyramid over before getting shot. I did really enjoy the bit with the twins fighting him, and I was really sad that that was pretty much just cut off and forgotten. I can dig that they used a railgun of all things to take down Devastator, because railguns are freaking badass, but at the same time, Devastator was really, really an underwhelming experience, and I'd been convinced he was going to be, like, you know, a thing to sell someone on seeing the film, and he wasn't. He was wasted, and I was sad to see that. And The Fallen as well. After all this build-up and seeing this decrepit, you know, elderly, aged, almost ghoul-like Transformer, he goes out to fight Optimus Prime and loses in approximately 20 seconds. I was expecting this climactic battle between, you know, the height of technology, Jet Prime dude, and facing the mystical, you know, telekinetic force of the Fallen, robotic Satan himself. And instead it was just like a 20-second fist fight with some of the most visceral action I'll go into this in a second too. But yeah, The Fallen and Devastator I felt were completely wasted potential. Also, there's the thing about this railgun. With all the lead up to it, I thought the railgun was going to be Jet Prime's personal handheld weapon, and it wasn't. And it would have been such good closure on that opening scene where it's made clear the Autobots have not been sharing weapons technology with the humans, for them to have to use human weapon technology to stop Devastator. And I don't know, it would have been a cool full circle thing, and again, some wasted potential there. Also, on the topic of things that were not made clear enough to the audience, the Constructicons are actually legion. There's multiples of them. This is made clear at BotCon. Sadly, it was not mentioned in any way, shape, or form in the film, which meant that an average theatergoer would wonder why the hell the robots that just combined into Devastator are also standing on the other end of the desert in their individual robot forms fighting the Nest army. Yeah, it was unfortunate. I thought it could have been cleared up with just a throwaway line even, and it was not, and that would make it just so confusing for someone who was watching the film and not aware of the backstory. Another thing, Grindor, and guy that looks like Bone Crusher. Grindor being the blackout that's in the forest fight scene, and Bone Crusher basically just showing up in the desert quite clearly in both vehicle mode and robot mode when he shoots two of the RC bikes. This could have been cleared up again with one throwaway line when the Doctor's putting Megatron back together, and I did love when he's like, you know, "Neat parts kills a small one." I thought that was awesome. And the Doctor was just so cool. Sadly, though, he vanished again without a trace during the course of the film. I thought they could have just had the Doctor turn around to the corpses of Bone Crusher and Blackout, who conceivably were also at the bottom of that abyss, and just say, you know, we're going to fix these two as well. There you go! And the part where the Blackout helicopter mode shows up in the movie, and there's a big, dark, like, ominous chord. They could have had Sam go like, "It's Blackout! How's this possible?" And it would have been, you know, awesome, but no, it was just wasted again. More wasted potential. Bone Crusher at the end. This is something that just a couple of us made up ourselves, but basically we thought it was hilarious, and you could just attribute this as being proof it was Bone Crusher, that the moment Optimus Prime came back to life, Bone Crusher fled the scene and was never seen again. Also, I may as well just mention Jolt the Vault. Clearly the last-minute addition to the movie that we all knew he was. But I did really like how he basically would just either stand there at the army base looking scary, or would just show up to resurrect Optimus Prime and combine him with Jetfire. So from now on, you know, Jolt is Autobot Jesus. Also, the scene with Dead Sam having the vision of all the Primes and the whole disintegrating Matrix thing and whatnot was, for a movie where our suspension of disbelief is put to the limit, I found it actually kind of patently absurd. It was just not explained clearly enough. I mean, it was a great homage to the Season 3 scenes of communing with the Matrix, but it really just came so out of left field. I wish there was some other way they could have done it, and also if the Primes are all kind of spiritually there and manifesting the Matrix physically on or off, then why didn't they just kind of disintegrate it again when the Fallen ripped it out of Optimus Prime about 2 seconds after he triumphantly stood up holding it? Also, there's the complaint that a lot of Autobots didn't get enough screen time. I do agree with this. I wish that a lot of the Autobots got more screen time. However, I do not think this means the twins got too much screen time. I think the twins were in the movie just perfectly enough. They weren't really in the movie all that much. I didn't find that they were overbearing or, you know, too much of a presence. In fact, I wish they were in the ending as well. In fact, I wish a lot of people were in the ending, because one of my other big problems with the movie was the complete lack of an ending. There's a sudden, very rushed, climactic fight scene, and then we're on an aircraft carrier and then the credits are rolling. It was really unsatisfying. The ending was just abysmal. It was way too rushed. It really was indicative to me that the movie was generally a rushed writing process near the end, and we know that the writers were basically locked in a hotel room to write the movie. So, yeah, it was a shame. I thought the ending could have been way more closure-ific. So... And finally, my biggest double-edged point with the movie would be Optimus Prime himself. Now, he's a homicidal badass in this movie, chopping things up and cutting things and shooting them and totally not taking guff from anyone, which, you know, a lot of people were happy about because he was considered by many to be pretty ineffectual in the first movie. And that's great. I love it. I love how over the top the violence got. I love how he chopped, you know, faces and things at the same time. Big con on the other end of that would be that Optimus Prime was a homicidal badass. In fact, I'd almost go to the point of a specific biology murdering fetishist like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan likes to cut off his arms and his hands, and Optimus Prime likes to remove his faces and heads. Optimus Prime went to levels that I actually felt... I'm not on the bandwagon of, oh my god, they ruined the character of Optimus Prime. I just thought it was hilarious and a little sad how he went to levels that did not feel heroic at all. There were many times where he felt outright, as I've said, like he was basically getting off on how vicious he was getting. Everyone knows the classic line, "Give me your face," before he tears the Fallen's own face off. And then the faceless, skeletal, screaming face of the Fallen looks right into the camera, and you think to yourself, wow, I feel bad for the Fallen, who then got his heart ripped out, etc., and was more or less, you know, there was no payoff for all the build-up on the Fallen, which was a shame. Although I liked Tony Todd's voicing, I thought it was great. I liked a lot of the voicing. I also, amidst all the homicidal Prime tendencies, I was really happy that when he did dislocate, you know, Megatron's arm and shoot him in the face with his own cannon and then blast him through a pyramid, which was awesome, that Megatron then got up afterwards, and with half his jaw missing, went all like, "Starscream! Blah, blah, blah." I thought that was awesome. I did really like Megatron when he wasn't sycophanting for the Fallen, and I loved that he was able to take all that. And I love how much abuse Megatron could take in this movie. After in the first movie, he'd get shot by some human missiles and go down to one knee. In this one, the scene when he's wading into the human firepower all by himself, and he's getting driven back a bit, but he's cracking off a few more fusion cannon shots, and he's trying to stagger through there, and then just as, you know, he's starting to take too much damage, he just goes like, "Rah!" and he turns into tank mode and drives back off, and I love that, because it felt like Megatron was a lot more unstoppable, not totally unstoppable, just a lot more believably the leader of the Decepticons. There's more I could talk about, but I'm going on way too long, so I'll just leave it at this for now, and leave these as my thoughts. Generally, I think that's everything I really wanted to cover off the top of my head. Anything else is something that I couldn't think of, so, couldn't have been all that important to my own review. I'm sure there's more I could discuss, but that would have to be line-fed by other people, so check out the podcast, I don't know. Overall, feasibly entertaining action flick experience. I'm not going to say entertaining positive, I'm not going to say negative, I'm just going to say it was feasibly entertaining. I had fun with it, I think it's very possible to have fun watching it. Friends of mine who are not into Transformers, who can be very critical of the movie, at least a couple of them have said that all the negative reviews actually made the movie better for them because it turned out way better than they'd expected. Not awesome, but just, you know, it was Michael Bay popcorn time. I'm not going to be the person who says you should turn off your brain to watch these movies, but I wish there was a better parlance for it. I wish there was better vocabulary to discuss that, because I think there's a gray level in between intelligent and unintelligent that can apply to most any action movie, and really it's just about whether or not it clicks with your level in there. I am kind of sad to see so many professional critics engaging in undue levels of hyperbole, and sometimes focusing on, at the beginning of the video, as I said, some faults that honestly were just so minor. I'd recommend this movie to any moderately hardcore and up level of Transformers fan. At the very least, you know, you'd be able to discuss it in detail and in depth. I would kind of cautiously recommend this film to someone who's just a fan of the first film, because that's kind of proven to not be a prereq that means you're going to love this one. There's some people who love the first film who didn't like this one. Roger Ebert, for instance, although I'm still hoping he could do a somewhat calmer written piece just to detail what he thought the differences were between the two. I found that that's the only thing I'm missing in the Roger Ebert talk about the film is what the difference was between the first one and this one. I would not recommend this movie to a non-Transformers fan or someone who's a casual fan, whether or not they're aware that they're casual. Again, no insult meant, it's just how it is. If you think, you know, oh, I'm the biggest Transformers fan ever, I remember the cartoon, it was great, Soundwave shot tapes out of his gun, and that's about it, then you're you're casual. Trust me, and you don't want to be hardcore if that's what you think hardcore is, because then you're going to find hardcore extremely discomforting and overly nerdy, so maybe count your blessings that you're casual. And as I said, I wouldn't really recommend it to a casual fan or a non-fan. See it if you want, but it's really inaccessible in many ways. I think that my own fan-based perspective has helped me with the movie. I mean, there's a lot of fans who don't like the movie, but there's a lot of fans who do, and I think it's just a case of perspectives, really. Anyway, I hope that was something worth checking out. And if I've directed you to this video because you asked me for my opinion on Transformers, then there's a whole bunch of it right there, and it saves me trying to type it all out because I'm lazy. And if you have any questions, leave comments, or just if I was sending you this in an IM conversation, then you can start talking to me in there. Anyway, this has been Vangelus. This has been my thoughts on Revenge of the Fallen. If I have any more, I'll just say check out the WTF and TFW podcast we're having about it, which we're about to record in just a couple minutes, actually. Thanks for watching. I want your face!